said on Friday that he would insist on voter ID as a condition for aid to California. Is that going to be a red line for you? Would you insist on voter ID in exchange for aid to California?
Yeah, we've got to work out the details of that. I have not spoken to the president about that issue since he said that. He'll be here tonight, of course, for dinner with us, and that's one of the topics of discussion. Listen, there are a lot of issues going on in California, and we have been lamenting the lack of voter security there for some time, election security. We were deeply concerned about it in this last election cycle, and we saw 3 of our seats frankly slip away from us in the weeks that it took to continue counting ballots in California when seemingly every other state and nation in America can get it done. It's inexcusable. Gavin Newsom provides, I think, such a lack of leadership there in so many ways, and it was highlighted by the disaster with the fires. It's so heartbreaking that California citizens are suffering because of the lack of state and local leadership on those issues. They did not manage the forest well. They did not manage the water well. And everyone knew for decades that the eventuality that we've seen over the last couple of weeks here since the fire disasters began was foreseeable. They assumed the risk because of their crazy far-left policies. So we've talked about conditioning the aid that will go there to policy changes. I think that is a common sense notion that is supported by the vast majority of the American people who do not want to subsidize crazy California leftist policies that are dangerous for people. And now what the terms are and the details of that we will be working out. But entwined in all of that is the concern about election security in California. And voter ID is a matter that, again, comports with common sense that most American people see the value in. And it'll be something we'll be trying to advance. Over here, yes.
Two questions. Do you see President Trump negotiating with Maduro, or Maduro will not have the opportunity to negotiate, or rather accept the terms in regard of the migrants? And the second question is whether this conversation with Bukele means that the president of El Salvador is going to receive members of Tren de Aragua TVA expelled from the United States in his prisons.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure. I'm not going to get ahead of the president with regard to negotiations with Venezuela or El Salvador or any other country. I will just say that we will be dealing with this in the same manner that we did with Colombia, and that is every nation around the world that, Venezuela is a good example. I mean, President Trump noted that they opened their prisons and sent very dangerous persons to the U.S. That is not acceptable. We should never have allowed it here. The Biden administration and Mayorkas opened the border wide and subjected the American people to all of these terrible, it's a humanitarian catastrophe and a violent problem, a violent crisis for the American people, and it must be addressed. And so President Trump will, you've seen, he will have a heavy hand, and we will support him on that regardless of who stands up against it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So I have some expertise with FEMA. I'm from Louisiana. We're a disaster-prone state, as is Florida, and we have a lot of experience with that. In my experience, it is very often the case that local workers, people who are working through FEMA, do a pretty good job, but often it's the leadership at the top that can affect the outcome of how a disaster is handled. There's been a lot of frustration, of course, over the last 4 years with how FEMA has been handled, and I think the president is right to assess that. I think we are entering a new era of government, and that is when the president says he wants to make the government more efficient and effective, and we say we want to limit the size and scope of government, it means that everything is on the table for reevaluation. This is a new moment for us to reevaluate everything that the federal government does. And FEMA is in the crosshairs, pardon the expression, because they're in the microscope, because these disasters are front and center for the country to review. And so I think that the task force that the president set up by the executive order is an appropriate step. I think that it's probably long overdue. It'll be a 6-month, 180-day evaluation with some very smart people in the room that have a lot of expertise and experience in dealing with FEMA. And I very much look forward to the outcome of that issue. I will tell you from my perspective, state of Louisiana, again, having a lot of experience with this, we have the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, we call it GOSEP, and they do an extraordinary job on a state level. They're very responsive to the people, and our people are very resilient, and they look to the state officials to handle that. FEMA has been a partner, but they probably could be a better partner. So we're going to withhold the final judgment on what the analysis is from that group, but I think the timing for that is important, and we support the President's initiative, obviously, 100%, and we'll assist from the House Republicans in any way that we can to contribute to that effort. With regard to the Inspectors General, the President will, my understanding is he will be replacing those positions with new persons. And sometimes you need a fresh look. Look, we want to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse in every way possible. The President's committed to that, and we are as well. The Inspector Generals, when they are working on all cylinders and to their top level of effectiveness, they can be a huge part of that. I think the President appreciates that, but sometimes you have to have, begin a new page and start with a fresh start, and I think maybe some new eyes, new voices will be appropriate at this time. Scott.
Thank you very much. With these roundups and with deportations that we're seeing in places like Chicago and around the country, are you concerned at all that there's a negative impact or unintended consequences as a result, specifically for folks like construction workers, people who are working in hotels, restaurants, people who sort of are the backbone of the economy that may be fearful to show up at work? Is that undermining the U.S. economy in any way?
I hope not. I don't think so. I think you heard Tom Homan say very clearly in the last 24 hours, the worst are first, and what he means by that is dangerous, violent criminals, and we know who they are. You've already seen them being rounded up and deported. That is the top and first priority of the federal government. The rest of it will be developed. I'm glad that we have a new Secretary of Homeland Security. I think Kristi Noem will do an extraordinary job in that position, and all the people that are being lined up have a very sober mind about this. They're very clear-eyed about what is required, what the American people demand and deserve, and frankly what they voted for in the election. They gave President Donald Trump a mandate to fix this problem. And no matter where I went around the country, border ranked in the top one or two issues everywhere, blue states, red state, everywhere in between. And so they are counting on us, they're counting on the administration and the Congress for that matter to back it up, to get control of this situation. And that's what's going to happen, and I think everybody can take a deep breath, let this play out. We are going to restore law and order at any cost, and I think we owe that to the people. It's a very, very simple thing. Jake.
Last question, guys. Is it still your goal to have a budget through both chambers by February 24th?
Yes. When we get back, the Budget Committee will be marking up, first week of February is the plan, marking up the budget to set the resolution to begin and unlock and open the reconciliation process. That will be where the lion's share of these campaign promises that we made are fulfilled. And that's what all the hard work here is in the rooms, all of us negotiating and coming to consensus with one another on the terms of that, why that's so important. We will get all the Republicans together on the consensus, and we will put forward that bill that will check those boxes and make sure we're doing right by the American people. The President's already begun. I mean, I just made a list this morning. Everything he started in the first 7 days, he's already securing our borders, removing dangerous illegal aliens, standing up to terrorists, bringing back the economy, unleashing American energy, putting an end to the DEI and gender ideology madness. That's in 7 days. We're just getting started. And you're going to see so much of this codified in our legislative agenda, and we'll get the appropriations going. We'll get the reconciliation going. It's going to be a very busy first 100 days. So you're all going to have to work as hard as we do. So I'm glad you're here. Last one, Olivia, go ahead. I'm not going to predict the outcome of, first of all, which tariffs will be enacted and how it will affect prices. We'll have to see. I think you're seeing a measured approach by the President. Tariffs clearly is going to be a part of the policy agenda from the White House. All of that, he's said to us, will be in the executive branch and not the legislative branch, so they'll have unilateral authority over it. But I think he's going to be wise in how he does that. I don't think you'll see across-the-board tariffs in whole countries or whole industries. I don't believe that's what will happen. I think he's going to deal with the unfairness that we see out on the world stage. China, for example, is a terrible trading partner. They abuse the system. They steal our intellectual property. They're now trying to get a leg up on us on AI, as you've seen the last day or so. It's a serious threat to us and to our economy and our security in every way. And so the President takes that seriously, and I think that he will deal with that in an appropriate manner. Look, we're free trade advocates, but as the President often reminds all of us, it has to be free and fair trade, and we simply don't have that with some of the people, allies and adversaries around the world. So President Trump will be the great equalizer on that, and we look forward to it. Thank you all for being here. We'll be talking with you next couple of days.